Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And we got a very special guest and a very special team report. You want to introduce yourself, Shilang?
Hi everyone, I'm Shilang. I'm working with Justin on putting this team, and we finally won the San Antonio Regional, and we meet at the finals. It's a dream. I always talk to Justin, let's meet at the finals, and we did it.
Yes, yes. I remember Peoria. We titled the first time we worked on a team like after Worlds. Tang's fourth regional win is what we called it, and we finally got it after that basically almost 2 years now. So it feels pretty good. And yeah, you guys already seen on stream already, but it's Calyrex, Among Us, Rory Moon, Lando, Urshifu, Okarpon. We'll get back to this real quick because we want to talk about how we actually got here first. And I'll start with Shiling because this was your team, your pride, and you had this with the Rank
Uh,
10 Battle Stadium, right?
yes, so back in, I think that's in June, the second season of the first Reg G, the same month as North America International. After NAIC, I started to build the team that has that idea of Grimmsnarl and Ice Rider. So the team I had for that season was the six that you saw on the screen. It starts with Grimmsnarl Ice Rider, but filled with some very good attackers, including Landros, Span, Urshifu, Rillaboom, and the Ogerpon Fire. So this team, I used this team on the June battle spot, and this one made me top 10 and also number 11 of that season. So this is a team that I really like. And then going into July, we figured out that this team is not very good into some of the CSR balance team. So CSR balance at that time, the most popular one are the double fake out with the Mungus and the Raging Bolt. So because of that, I kind of dropped the team and then built my Worlds team, which has the Ogre Teal Mask, which is very good into instant Among Us, Urshifu Water, Sash, and Rillaboom. So this team, we brought it to Worlds, and I also top cut Worlds with this team. We think this was a good meta call back in Worlds. It has very good matchup into a lot of the CSR balance stuff.
Yes, yes. And yeah, we also had the Tera normal Ice Rider, which was, more counterplay to it. Again, like you mentioned, Defiant for the Ensign stuff, and Sash Urshifu was also trending going the world, so loaded dice Bullet Seed was such a good meta call. Because like all the Ogre Punts were not Bullet Seed at the time, and this was pretty cool to see. And we also had like Wide Guard and Pelipper for CSR. So our CSR matchup was really good, and we expect to see a lot, and it was for the most part correct because CSR was top usage going to Worlds. But World Championships has been over for a long while now, and we wanted to revisit it after we actually came back in late December, right? We had Toronto as our last regional, and then after Toronto, I know that you wanted to revisit the
Yeah.
team
So
during
after
Christmas.
Toronto, Yeah, so after Toronto, I really don't want to waste my top 10 battle spot. I always believe that battle sub top team should be able to transfer into a regional or major team. So I pick up this team, but the meta has changed a lot since then, since June and then. This team is a little um, kind of outdated. One issue is that it still doesn't beat the CSR balance as before, and also Choice Band and Grizzner are really afraid of fake outs, and also the team doesn't have a dragon type, which is very easy to. It's very vulnerable to lose to some fire water grass pin. For example, Urshifu Ogre Fire lead is very painful for this team.
Right, right. And that's when I remember you showed me it, and we were playing with Grimmsnarl, and I also agree Grimmsnarl wasn't like my favorite Pokemon to use because it felt too slow and clunky. And then I remember you showing Rory Moon. Rory Moon felt like a really weird pick, but
Yeah,
it made so much
so
sense.
Yeah, at that time, I think it's end of December. One day I showed Justin I had a random idea to use Moon to replace Grimstar.
Yes.
So why I thought about it, one thing is Moon is still a dark type, so dark type in general is good into CSR. And also Grimstar has an important thing to do is to do speed control. So Moon can do the same with Tailwind, but not Thunder Wave. So in this sense, they are the same. And also, I feel like with Choice Bind Urshifu, I really wanted to have a Tailwind. Like we all know, Tailwind Surging Strike is a click the button move that a lot of people like, and it's very easy to use. So then we put up Roar Moon here, and I think Justin did a good job with it on Best of One ladder.
Yes, yes, I was getting into that. I was gonna make its own separate video before, but then I ended up also winning with it. So yeah, this was what I had. I had the alt 5-3 UIC. I only wanted to get rank one because our friend Buster Link was above me by like 2 points, so I passed him, which was more for confidence, but also to have that ego boost and be above him. And I also did really well in a BO3 with it too. We all had pretty high counts. I know you also had one pretty high up there as well. So we had a very strong showing with the team and it gave us more confidence going into the tournament. But we actually ended up dropping it. Remember that we dropped the team for a little bit because you mentioned
Yes, we
earlier
did. So
fake out was a
yeah,
problem for choice ban.
mhm. Yeah, as we mentioned, the CSR balance is still painful even with the Roaring Moon change. We find that, okay, with the 6, and with Choice Band Urshifu, if opponent just simply use double fake out plus Urshifu plus Shadow Rider, we cannot beat it.
Exactly.
So there was a point we went back to revisit our Worlds team and almost dropped this team. But meanwhile, I think Justin's senior, Louise, come to Justin to asking for a team, and Justin shared the version above, and Louis made a one interesting change. That's to change Rillaboom into the Smeargle.
Yeah, this was a pretty big change because we were relying on Rillaboom for that quote unquote Murata matchup. Everyone says Rillaboom is a Murata matchup, but from Louis' replays, it kind of showed that we didn't actually need the Rillaboom to beat Miraidon. This is because like Landorus itself, Landorus, Kelly Ice, and Heart Flame is already pretty good versus Murata itself, and Smeargle it was just kind of here for extra measures into the Shadow Rider. He had that wide guard. He had very impressive replays where he showed me where Spore was really useful and Decorate was a pretty cool option too to boost the Calyrex, but it's mostly kind of just that extra follow me. Like the double redirection actually was really impressive. Like double redirection with the protector restricted was really strong, and Spore is a broken move. So this kind of gave us a better direction how to head into San Antonio because we realized that the team was still strong, but it also needed some tweakings. Like Louis had a good change, but we knew we could be better, right? So that's how
Yeah.
we came with the following version, of course.
Yeah, so with testing Louis' team, we found, okay, this one, we can beat Miraidon without Rillaboom. However, we still cannot beat the Calyrex Shadow Rider balance with double fake out. We asked a bunch of friends, and a friend told us that Cover Cloak Among Us is very good into double fake out Shadow Rider. The Cover Cloak just forced them to not fake out, and they are forced to use their Ogre Prong Fire to respect Among Us. In that case, if they drop a fake out for Ogre Prong Fire, it is much easier for us to navigate and use the Tailwind mode to beat the Shadow Rider balance. So we ended up using Among Us, and similar to Smeargle, Among Us is also a very good redirection partner that can give some trouble to the Miraidons. And with some tests, we find okay, this 6 can still be Miraidon. We don't need Rillaboom, but we just need an Among Us. And also the same time, Zamazenta becomes really popular. And we found Among Us is also a really important pick into a lot of the Zamazenta teams. So these 6 are we fix on this 6 as our final version. And another important change is that we change our Urshifu from Choice Band to Mystic Water because we still want it to hit hard, but we also want the Urshifu to have Protect into the double fake out. So we cannot easily run the choice band, but now we are on Mystic Water.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly love the Mystic Water change because Protect was so valuable, and to make up for Choice Band, we also had Tera Water. So we had a lot of multipliers still to make up for Choice Band, and it was still a really good Tailwind abuser. Also, we also had added the Taunt, right? Taunt was actually a pretty cool ability because you mentioned the Zamazenta teams, like being able to taunt Wide Guard was really useful, and taunting Among Us shut down Spore was also really fun.
Yep.
And yeah, that's how the kind of team that came together. It came together with all this help. And before, of course, we used the team. We actually, Louis was of course using it, and he ended up winning Birmingham with it. He's your Birmingham regional champion for the seniors division, and he lost his very first round and went undefeated afterwards. Really impressive run, beating some very strong senior players like Pietro, Marco Silva's brother, and yeah, so super strong. And the one loss he had though was a very scary team. It was actually to a Zamazenta team, but it had a tech piece of Goggles Urshifu. So one of the weaker matches we found was Goggle Urshifu, but on the bright side, that was not very popular going to San Antonio because most people were on the Chi Flutter variants without it. So that felt quite nice. But yeah, team was it. Uh, we had a lot of success with it on ladder, with Louis winning Birmingham, and yeah, just so much success with it. You also got like I think like rank 10 before San Antonio 2 in Battle Stadium, right?
I was rank 15.
Okay, close enough. That's still very, very strong. But yeah, I mean that's how the team came together. I guess we can also talk about the EVs now. It's probably a good place to go to next. So a lot of these AVs are pretty complicated in a way, right? Because a lot of these Pokemon that you normally see don't run these speed tiers, right? The most important to note is this Calyrex is very fast, Lando's very slow, Urshifu is also very slow, and Ogerpon is impish. So I think the people want to hear like how we came up with these EV spreads and why these are the best for this team.
Yeah, some of the EV spreads are just inherited from the June Battle Spot team. I think Landorus is coming from that time. So when I was pairing Landorus with Grimmsnarl, I figured that with screens and with a lot of bulk, Landorus can take a lot of attacks. So with Terra Water, I can also stand in front of Ice Rider or Urshifu Water and just fire off very strong Sandsears or Earth Power to do big damages.
Yeah,
Yeah. And for other months, EV are mostly new after we come up with a team. So we can start with Ice Rider. So Ice Rider is mostly standard besides the speed. 116 is an attack that has good chance to one-shot Rillaboom and Raging Bolt if they don't have bulk. So this is an attack that I know some people may fall short because I sometimes miss-KO on those two. But we need enough physical bulk to run 252 HP, and also we need speed we put the speed to outspeed Landorus in Tailwind. So with that, we have 170 in Tailwind, which is just enough to outspeed Landorus. And
yeah,
then comes to Urshifu. So Urshifu, the speed was 129. That's just outspeed Pelipper. We need enough attack to hit to have a good chance to kill Ogerpon Rock and the Chien-Pao. Usually, those two can survive surging strikes from uh, Focus Sash, but with the 1.2 multiplier from Mystic Water, this attack has good chance to kill them. And we put rest of the EVs in HP. One reason is that by the time we created the team, Extreme Speed Entei and the Sucker Punch Chien-Pao can easily pick up Urshifu if we don't have enough bulk. So we put a lot of EVs on the physical side to make sure we have a good chance to live E-Speed from Entei plus Sucker Punch from Chien-Pao so that we can lead Roimu Urshifu and beat the Chien-Pao into that lead. And then Among Us was kind of come later. We just put special defense, physical defense Among Us, mostly for Zamazenta, and we put some special defense to have a better chance to live his sidekick from no item Shadow Rider. For Roaring Moon's speed was for Iron Treads. Attack is mostly for Terraflying Acrobatics, Kill, No Bulk Urshifu, and we adjusted HP and defense to live +2 order up. And finally, Hearthflame. So Hearthflame was originally an adamant when it was paired with Grimmsnarl, and later we found this team is a little weak to Ogerpon Rock or Cornerstone. So we came up with this EV so that one single IV from a Jolly Max Cornerstone will not pick up Ogerpon Fire. So with knowing this, this gives us a lot of like wiggling room into Cornerstone, so that they are forced to Terra Rock, or if they don't, we can threaten them another attack into their partner or their Ogerpon Pokemon Cornerstone. So this is the Cornerstone is the main reason we found that Hearthflame should go Impish Max, and later we also find that this is very important into Calyrex Ice because you almost guarantee take 2 Glacials from Calyrex Ice, so you can easily switch in, take a Glacial Lance, and then follow me redirect out the potential Spore from their Among Us partner.
yeah. This Orca One spreader was like honestly amazing. The Impish was such a good call because you look at the team, Cornerstone actually hits like a lot of the team, right? Like Urshifu is weak to Power Whip, Calyrex is weak to Ivy Cudgel, Amoonguss not really doing much back to it, and Heartflame of course is also weak to Ivy Cudgel. But being able to take that one Ivy Cudgel most times is game breaking. and you can KO back with your own Surgeon Strike. So really, really good call here. Other things to note is I kind of want to touch bases on some of these other Terras as well. So I had some questions I saw like why we Terra Water Mystic Water? Like, is that not enough multipliers? Why is Amoonguss Terra Fairy? Why is Cali Ice Terra Fairy? And why is Lando Terra Water? Because these are not Terras we always see on these Pokemon. So kind of want to hear your thought process on that.
Yeah, so we can still start with Lando because it's mostly inherited from the old team. The Terra Water Lando is very good. The Terra Water Lando, what I figure out is that it's very good when it's next to Ogerpon. Usually, water's weakness are electric and grass, which we usually features Rillaboom and Raging Bolt. But usually those two Pokemon only run single target moves like Thunderbolt or Grassy Glide or Woodhammer, which Ogerpon Hearth Flame very easily can redirect, remove the threat into Landorus. And Landorus with Life Orb is just can fire off very big attack. So Terra Water Landorus next to Ogerpon is usually very hard for opponent to remove, and the Landorus itself can simply do very good damage.
Yeah, perfect.
For Urshifu, we were at choice band, so we want to keep the attack power of choice band. So we use Terra Water to make up for the losing attack from choice band to Mystic Water, and we found also water is both offensive and defensive Terra from Urshifu because once you remove your um fighting type, you can easily take moves from say Dazzling Gleam from Flutter Mane so that our Shifu can fire off big attacks. And the same reason as Lando, a water type next to Ogerpon Fire is very good that Ogerpon Fire can protect Urshifu from taking super effective damage. And for Calyrex Ice Rider, Fairy is more of a meta pick. So if you think, hey, there's a lot of CSR, you probably want to Terra Normal. However, later of the meta is involved in a way that there's less CSR but more Zamazenta. And in our test, Fairy is also very good into Miraidon because a lot of Iron Hands only run Heavy Slam and Low Kick. They don't run Well Charge. So Fairy can completely wall Iron Hands, and at the same time, it also resists foul play from Farigiraf. So Fairy from Kali Ice can play a big role into the Miraidon matchup. And finally, for Mungus, we are just looking for a more neutral-ish defensive Terra, so that we pick Fairy. I think Water might works as well. We just have too many Waters in the team, and when we are testing it, a Fairy just feels like no issue at all. So we pick Fairy as the Terra for Mungus, same as Ice Rider.
Yeah, I would touch back on the fairy ice rider because I think it was actually Louis' idea because he mentioned it because Terra Normal wasn't really coming up. Like, yes, it's really good for just a Shadow Rider, but even with Terra Normal, we found that it still wasn't like completely beating Shadow Rider on its own, right? Because like the Shadow Rider matchup was still pretty solved with the Rory Moon Ursh other core. We didn't always bring the Kali Ice in that matchup, so Fairy was just better versus Miraidon, which was more trending, and Zamazenta, which had just won major tournaments online, and of course Birmingham it won as well, the Miraidon. So Fairy really good versus that. It was also really good versus Dark Urshifu. I remember when we were Terra normal, Dark Urshifu just pinned us completely, and I hated that. So I was like, okay, I'm going Terra Fairy, and that was basically it. But yeah, I mean that's the team. That's how it came together, and these are the EVs. Going on, I guess we can talk about matchups because people had questions about that. Like we're gonna go over these like briefly, and then I also want to go over our runs ourselves, but we're kind of going down some of the more common restricted matchups, and we're probably gonna start with Kyogre because this just made finals at Birmingham. So how do we usually deal with Kyogre? We do have the Rory Moon, of course, and some other picks like the Heart Flame, which is good versus Kyogre. But like you want to talk about some of the matchups here with me?
Yeah, so for this one, this is a little bit of an uphill matchup for us because Kyogre is usually good into Terra, Calyrex Ice Rider that's not water or grass Terra. So what we do into it is usually like say Roaring Moon Urshifu try to deal damage to their Kyogre, and then we can put like say Ogerpon and Calyrex in the back to fight off good attacks once rain is over um or when their Kyogre was removed.
Right, right. And another one I want to touch bases on is this is actually a pretty good one because I remember when Pengy went 8-0, we were kind of worried about this because we did practice versus 8-show variants before, and you did beat one in top 16. Like what's a general game plan versus Tauren Ogre? Because I know this is also a very volatile matchup with the speed orders.
Yes, the thing is that we are a tail room team. Pengi's version or his friend's version is not Farik. They are Serena.
Serena, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Serena, so that they can only do Tailwind. But Tailwind is not easy for them if they say they can easily say they can Tailwind Water Spout for sure, and we are going to take big damage. But if they Tailwind and Trick Room, we are always going to move first. And if we can position Urshifu in the Trick Room, it can just deal big damage to their whole team. So this game went very, it's actually very mind gamey. Like they like to lead Torn Kyogre, but I like to lead Roaring Moon Calyrex. And then things like if I Tailwind, they don't Tailwind, I Tailwind Glacial, remove their Torn, they can lose. If they Tailwind and I Trick Room, they could also lose. So it's basically try to play the mind game and get the right speed control on my side.
Right, perfect. I didn't face any Kyogre during my run, so I wasn't sure what I'd do exactly, but you definitely showed that it's a very beatable matchup, but it's always volatile with Ice Rider, of course. Um, I actually want to go over this one. This one's kind of funny. So, Chinese Sun, I got was it's basically what we call it now, and I remember I tweeted about this before the tournament, saying I would actually run it, and people actually, I think some people actually believed it, but I didn't end up running it. And my round one actually thought I would be a Groudon mirror, but Groudon, I don't think it's notoriously a bad matchup at all for Cali Ice. Like, I remember I was talking to the creator and he was saying that Follow Me plus Ice Rider kind of beats a lot of his team, right? You can actually beat a lot of these Groudon teams, not even just the Chinese Sun variant, but like even the Jump Bluff variants. Like going to the term, I actually wish I pulled any of the like Carson group running this because you just shut down Jump Bluff with your own Ogerpon. Ice Rider hits his whole team, and even Landorus hits his whole team, right? Sludge Bomb, Terra Fire, Earth Power hits this, Earth Power hits this, Sludge Bomb hits Jump Bluff, Earth Power hits Raging Bolt. Landorus plus Cali Ice pins these Groudon teams completely, and I never found Sun to be a big issue on a particular Groudon comps. Koraidon's a bit different, but Groudon itself, I think it's a bit slower in how it works. And Heart Flame, Cali, Lando just pins the whole team, is what I found in practice. But
Yeah,
speaking of,
usually
mhm,
what we do into Groudon team is basically we lead something like Ogerpon Lando or Ogerpon Calyrex, and then try to use Lando to fire off big damage, and then we can either go Trick Room mode with Kali Ice or we go Tailwind mode with Roaring Moon.
yes, Roarman's also a pretty good piece because nothing really outspeeds it besides Jump Bluff. And again, like Jump Bluff's harder to bring when you have Heart Flame plus Cali, right? It's kind of dead weight there. Um, the one hard Sun matchup though is actually Karana can be a little bit tricky with its partners because you actually played Luca Paz. The he went 10-1, and he actually beat you day
Mhm.
round one of day two. So um, what makes this matchup tricky? Because I actually know Louis actually beat this in finals, but he also said it's actually quite tricky, and I think it has to do with something with the Ditto and Shiyu and Cornerstone we mentioned earlier being a problem. So how did this matchup play out for you?
Yeah, so this matchup feels a little like the Kyogre one. It's mostly mode guessing. So we have two modes. The first one is a tailwind mode, which we can lead Roaring Landorus, and then have, say, Urshifu, Ogerpon Fire, or Ogerpon Calyrex in the back. So to deal with our tailwind mode, they can easily lead their Fluttermane because Fluttermane is fast and Roaring Moon. They can Icy Wind to make us slow. They can also threaten a KO on Roaring Moon with their Moonblast. So usually anything that with a Flutter Lead, say Flutter Ogre Pond or Flutter Koraidon, can beat our lead on the and beat our Roaring Moon lead. However, if they lead Flutter, Flutter is very bad into Calyrex Ice Rider. Say if they lead Flutter Ogerpon and I lead Follow Me Trick Room, I can easily set up Trick Room and then send in my attackers to create a good pin or use Amoonguss to spore their potential Ditto or other mons. So their Flutter mode can beat our Tailwind mode and lose to our Trick Room mode. But what if we always do Trick Room mode? If we do Trick Room mode, they can also do their offense mode. For example, if I lead Follow Me Trick Room, what they can do is they lead Cornerstone and Chiyu. They can Terra Rock, Evi, Cudgel, kill Terra Rock, Ivy Cudgel kill my Hearth Flame, and Chiyu can taunt my Calyrex to deny a Trick Room. And because we are on Trick Room mode, we don't have Roaring Moon, so that everything in the back are quite slow, so that Koraidon switching can easily outpace us. Another thing is if we do trick room mode, they can also switch in Ditto to copy our Calyrex so that our Lando cannot easily stand on the field. So we will need to use Among Us to beat the Ditto. Yeah, so
Yes.
this one is tricky. It's a little of a mode guessing, and in my set versus Luca, he guessed both modes correct in 2 games, so I lost to him.
I think important to note too is that actually one of us played Luca on Showdown or his team good group. So he actually had replays and game plans. He actually also knew our spreads. He knew that our phone was impish, and that's what he Tera that one game. So
Hmm.
I think information like was really key in his department. Like I think I was lucky enough to know that my opponents didn't know all my spreads, or even your top 4 opponent, for example, also went to cudgel and you lived. For example, if he knew that, you would also be in a maybe a trickier spot, right? Because information was really key in his
Yes.
tournament. And I felt like we did
Hmm.
get away with a lot of our spreads. Our spreads were kind of like we could easily steal 1 round with it because opponents didn't know to play. Difference was Luca had experience versus us, so made it a little bit more trickier. Going down a bit, a bunch of Ice Rider variants. I think this is actually going to cover. Hard Trick Room. I faced a very similar variant. Actually, me and Shilling actually both did. We faced the same guy who top 8, William Brown. A different variant of this, but it plays pretty similar, right? He also had Indeedee Calyrex Blood Moon. Instead of Torkoal, he had Heart Flame, but everything else was the same. It was Choice Band Urge with Smeargle. And this is a bit of a mode guessing game. William always led Heart Flame Cali versus me, and he had Smeargle Ursh in the back all game 1 and game 3 versus me. And it was kind of a mind game. One thing to note was his Heart Flame that he had instead of Torkoal was slower than Lando. So if he did Terra to kill my Ursh, then Melander's back would be able to clean it. Urshifu was so good versus these teams because of taunt pressure. So that's why William would always focus pride in his killing the Ursh to prevent taunt on his Trick Room Center. Um, Yeah, and I think that's really the main thing to note. It's sort of a mode guessing game. Like usually when go Ursh, Kali, and either Among Us or Heartflame in the back with Landorus. Among Us is good to go to Trick Room mode because sometimes they don't set up Trick Room immediately. Sometimes he's clicking Glacial. That's what he did the first game versus me. And in game 2, game 3, he always went for Trick Room, and I went for Among Us. Uh, so yeah, I know you also played him, and you also gave me the line, so I actually was able to copy you and try to adjust to his game plans. But you kind of agree with what I said. It's sort of kind of a
Mhm.
50-50 mind game on lead.
Yes. There are also some turns that are 50-50 because Smeargle is that Pokemon that can fake out. But if you protect on their fake out, they can also decorate or spore you.
Yes.
So Smeargle is very, very tricky for some 50-50. I lost a game to him because he sent his Smeargle, he didn't fake out, he didn't spore, he just go for, wait, he went for spore in front of my Urshifu.
Uh-huh.
Um and he just ignored that my Urshifu was there that can threaten a kill or taunt the Smeargle. I caught it wrong. I switched in Among Us, expecting I fake out Trick Room, and I lost 1 game.
Yes. He actually did the same thing in game 3. He clicked decorate as well. I think he's trying to I almost fell for it as well, so kind of funny. All right, now moving on, we have Imprison Ice Rider stuff. I just wanted to talk about this matchup a little bit because Imprison Ice Rider is always tricky for any other Ice Rider, and just did top 8 worlds. So kind of want to hear our approach to it because we didn't actually end up facing it during our run, but we did a lot of practice versus this because if we did pull it, it felt like an auto loss otherwise. But we actually came up with some good game plans. Because I know we had Taunt
Yeah.
Urshifu, and we also had the Terra Water Lando, or because we actually had speed investment on Ice Rider, if they did commit Terra Dragon, we can actually outspeed him for a Ghost lands off. So I think that's what made it pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
versus imprison, the idea is to either taunt their Calyrex so that they cannot easily imprison, or we can also make them click Trick Room, and then we spore their Calyrex under the Trick Room. Both of these are working, so we basically do a kind of speed sandwich their Calyrex.
yep, exactly. Moving on to the other Ice Rider comps. The Hirafumi and the NJ1, I think we talk about them together because they're very similar. A very fast Ice Rider comp with either Aleki or Icy Wind Flutter. And actually faced one in top 16, a very similar variant. I think the only difference was there was no Fluttermane. There's a Rillaboom instead. And it was never, instead of Nevermount Ice, I think Nevermount Ice was only Hirafumi. Clear much the more standard one. Um, Faster Ice Rider comps, you're usually kind of trading damage in a way. This is where the Impish Ogerpon really mattered a lot. In my top 8, it didn't come up because he never actually Ivied my Ogerpon, but I was able to kind of surge and kill his Ogerpon and kind of pin his Calyrex with a combination of Ivy plus Surging. I also use Landorus in this matchup because Landorus is able to Sandsear a lot of the team. I actually won my game one because I lived a Scarf Overheat from Shiyu. Overheat, I lived like 4% because we had like max HP Lando. And then I double connect Sandsear on Shiyu plus Raging Bolt. It was that's how I won the game. And kind of just outbulking, trading damage, and sometimes in these Trick Room, in these Ice Rider mirrors with the faster ones, you also might want to get your own Trick Room up. That one is more probably common with the Regieleki variant, just because it's a lot harder to Tera Water your Landorus in the mirror here, with the Aleki being faster than you and be able to pin you with EUF's Thunderbolt or Power Up Orc upon here. Trick Room might work better in this one. All right, moving on to the Mungus variants. There's Huanfi's and Yuta's team. I actually faced a very similar Yuta variant at my Swiss round. I believe Swiss round like 11. The only difference was he had Ting Lu, and instead of Valiant, I believe he had Incineroar, so a more slower version of this team, but still a rain comp with Amoonguss. And usually versus Amoonguss, Cali Ice, Taunt Urshifu is quite nice. Heart Flame is pretty good as well for that Follow Me and Ivy Cudgeling, just kind of trading damage. Your own Ice Rider, of course. I also really like Water Terra Landorus in these matchups, kind of trading damage. If I did face the Valiant variant, I think the Valiant one's actually a little bit harder, mostly because of that coaching plus wide guard ability. Especially, and they also have the wide guard pelipper. Well, like double wide guard's a bit of a nuisance. But if they don't have that and they have something slower, you can kind of out damage them, is what I found in practice. Honfi's one, it's a little bit different, but pretty similar. You're using Landorus and Urshifu to trade damage, have your own Cali Ice. Heartflame can also still work. I think in practice we're actually using Amoonguss because if they did set up Trick Room, Spore was pretty free for us. And also, Incineroar here is not noticeably safety goggles. It has to click Taunt, and Spore is good versus the rest of the team. One thing to practice though is we mentioned Terra Water Landorus is good in the mirror, but because they actually have Darker Shufus instead of Rapid, what we found is that Terra Fair into Calyrex and Endgame actually was better. And you can just use your Landorus to trade damage and sack it to Glacial Lanes if needed, because you basically put the other Calyrex in Glacial range in the endgame. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think that's really about this
Yep.
matchup.
Mhm.
Did you face anything like that during your run? Any Ice Rider mirrors? Because I believe I faced like 5. I faced a lot of Ice Rider mirrors during my run.
Yeah, during I think we can talk about our run later, but I
Uh
think
huh.
I faced a Pelipper one, which was a little tricky. I need to use Ruin Moon to outspeed it, and I also got lucky in that set. And
Gotcha.
the other one is mostly Tanner Mask that people already saw on top 8.
Right. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. Moving on to the last few matches we have here. Pagos. Choice Specs one. This one kind of fell off a little bit, but Choice Specs and Combine play very, very differently, right? So main thing to note with Specs is they usually go max speed modest, and max speed modest. Orlando's actually EV to live outspeed that 138 Orlando, and Urshifu is actually 129. So in this matchup, you can actually kind of mix around the speed orders a bit. If you're expecting Tailwind, Trick Room's actually pretty good in this matchup. Like if you look at this team, there's actually 0 Glacial switch-ins besides Rapid Strike. So one play you can do is like knock off the choice specs, go for like Trick Room or knock off plus Glacial. And if you do set up Trick Room, you have that Glacial plus close combat pin to kill the Pagos. So that felt really strong. And I think every time we face this in ladder, we always won on Showdown. So I think that was pretty funny. I talked this one about a bit more too, because I also faced a lot of Combine Pagos during my run. I got to move on a little bit more too, but the more standard Pagos teams usually have D6. A lot of them also carry Amoonguss as well. But yeah, the ones that Brady and Burns, they ran Amoonguss plus Chen Pao instead of Rillaboom Heartflame. Amoonguss makes more sense for the Zama, of course. And I think this is more 50-50 matchup. You're kind of just trading damage. Important pieces in this matchup is either Ice Rider or Urshifu. And then usually Landorus is pretty good too because you can kind of click Sandsear Storm versus a lot of these Pokemon. And Terra Water Via to resist the Rapid Strike is also really, really good. Roaring Moon can also make sense because you can knock off the leftovers and you can outpace the. If you get rid of the Flutterbane, Roaring Moon actually is pretty good versus the Firewater Grass Core, which we mentioned earlier is why it's there. It beats Urshifu, Ogerpon in a way, right? Being able to resist both. Um, but yeah, going down, Sama. I know you can talk to someone about it a bit too because you played a lot of Zama. You can go into details more about the run, but you kind of gave some standard game plans of our lines.
Yeah, so this Zama, I feel so this is the Snow Zama team that's getting very popular, and I actually play I think 2 or 3 of this. So the standard game plan, what we do is Ogre Fire, Calyrex, Amoonguss, and Urshifu. So what we try to do is to try to have Trick Room because we're Terra Fairy. It's quite easy to set up Trick Room with Ogre support. But a lot of times I just tend to protect Ogre because I know Calyrex will survive. and then I try to position Among Us plus Ogerpon in the Trick Room so that it can pin their Among Us and spore their Zamazenta. And also Urshifu under Trick Room has a lot of like offensive pressure on the thing next to their Zamazenta, which is usually Chiyu and Chien-Pao.
Exactly. Yep, that's usually the center game plan. I know sometimes we tried the Rory Moon versus this. Like Rory Moon can technically do a lot of work, but we found a lot of turns where there were a lot of 50-50s where they can either swap to Among Us. Because like Tailwind Surge and Chien-Pao is like one play we could try, but if they swap to Among Us and you Surge into Rocky Helmet, you just lose a lot mid ground. So we found the double redirect Wolf Cali Tricker mode felt the best versus most of these Alma comps. Similar to this, we mentioned this earlier. Actually, I only want to put this because this is basically an auto loss almost always. Just because Goggles Ursh, it means we couldn't go to Among Us line to Shielding just mentioned, right? It just kind of deals too much damage and ignores our Among Us and hits our Calyrex too hard. So if you do want to counter the team, Goggles Ursh with Zamazenta is a pretty good way of beating Among Us Cali Ice. Next one to talk basis on is, of course, Miraidon. I faced a lot of Miraidon in the tournament. We also did a lot of Miraidon practice. Thank you, Sanvi, for helping me practice a lot versus Miraidon before the tournament. Um, we found that Miraidon was a very volatile matchup still. The cool part of our team is that with double redirection, Lando, and Calyrex, it gives us actually a lot more counterplay to it than usual. The Tera, like I mentioned before, really good versus the Drain Punch, Low Kick, Iron Hands, right? Being able to resist, being a Draco Meteor is also a good thing. Follow Me to block Encore, right? And Glacial Lance hits like basically this whole team as well. So there's a lot of lines you can do with that. Other game plans we had were also like Rory Moonlando. That's a bit more gambling. Like Tailwind Sandseer is a pretty good line. You can also double miss Sandseer though. I had that happen to me in my winning in. So not the most reliable line ever, but I found the game plan is sometimes you got to land Sandseer to win this game. Because you need the Sandseer Glacial to either KO for Graph in Trick Room or to get damage on Miraidon plus Urshifu, so you can revenge kill your Urshifu and Tailwind, right? A lot of game plans you have with that. Speaking of the Urshifu form, the Rapid Strike one is a little bit harder because they do resist the Glacial Lance. If they are something like that Single Strike can't touch the Fairy Calyrex. That's why we have it. So with Fairy, you resist the Dark Ursh, you resist Hands, and you resist Draco. So this variant here was a lot easier. I hope they pulled more, but I actually ended up pulling like all the Rapid Strike versions during my run. Um, but yeah, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, versus Rapid Strike, if we have Trick Room up, we'll try to position in Lando in front of Rapid Strike under Trick Room so that Sensei or Earth Power can remove it fast to reveal their Miraidon under Trick Room.
That's actually a good point. Urshifu, the standard Urshifu Sash set is 149. Our Landorus being 138 stat means we actually underspeed it in Trick Room, so we use it more of a Trick Room abuser to beat Urshifu, which is not usually seen versus most Lando sets. Moving on to Shadow Rider. Shadow Rider, of course, is Cali Shadows, and Cali Ice is big as op, and we wanted to cover this pretty well with that Roaring Moon, which it did help a lot, honestly. But it's always a volatile matchup just because they have so many different modes you gotta guess. It's either Fake Out Ursh, Ogre Punk Cali. In practice, actually, Marco helped us a lot testing, and he actually was beating me more without the Shadow Rider. He would drop the Shadow Rider and beat me with Incinerilla Ursh plus Heart Flame, which was really annoying. So a lot of modes you gotta guess, but Cobra Cloak Among Us did make this a little bit more playable. The most annoying part with Cobra Cloak Among Us though is if they go to Heartflame mode or if they're Life Orb Psychic, they can kind of one shot you. She mentioned earlier that we're EV'd for non-boosted Psychic. So that's a good thing if you do face that. Life Orb's a bit harder. But yeah, Shiling, you want to talk about more of the Shadow Rider matchup because I know that we were talking about Tekken about this a little bit.
Yeah, I think we before the team was really bad into it, but once we added the Mungus, it becomes more of a mode guessing. So basically, if they do double pick out without Hearth Flame, sometimes the Among Us can pin a lot of their team. However, if they do Hearth Flame and drop one of the double fake out, then it's easier for us. If they do single fake out, it's easier for us to use Ruin mode to outpace them and do big damage because they don't have enough fake out to stall the Tailwind. So it can come to a mode guessing game, and sometimes, well, your play also matters because you are versus a balance.
Yep, exactly. Some general game plans I like to use versus this team was like Among Us, Lando, Rory Moon, Ursh was what I did most on ladder. I was able to beat Marco one game with it in practice. I beat a bunch of players on ladder with it. It gets a little bit harder to go to glide mode. Like once Marco realized I was going for that, he would go for the glide game plans. So that's when you can bring your own Ogrepon actually to follow me away to glide to protect your Ursh, because we're Terra Water Ursh, right? So we can't get around the Tera Ivy Cudgels or Tera. I mean, the Tera boosted Grassy Glide will kill your Earth straight up in grassy terrain. So you got to play around that really carefully. Trick Room can work versus this, but it gets a little bit harder if they are Wispinson. If they're not, I feel like the Trick Room mode can also work. Like use like Hard Flame Cali with like Landers and Trick Room and like the Glacial Sandseer pins a lot of times could also work. Next one is, Dozo. There's a lot of Dozo variants. I don't think this matchup's that bad. With Amoonguss, we talk about Amoonguss being really good versus Zamazenta. It's also really good versus Shadow Rider Weezing stuff because you can eat up the spikes and there's no poison for your team, of course, and then you can spore stuff in Trick Room and be able to spore Dozo is really good. Either forcing a Grass Terror on Dozo to hit with your Ice Rider and Pollen Puff, or knock off on the Roaring Moon as well is also really good for the Shadow Rider because you can just knock off KO Cali turn 1 and click Trick Room and usually reverse sweep with Among Us Cali with either Urshifu or Lando to hit the Dozo is what I usually did in this matchup. Didn't end up facing any. I don't think any Dozos actually did particularly well at San Antonio. Only like I think one, but we didn't end up facing any besides Dalway.
Yeah,
Which
there the one top 16 I faced them in Swiss.
okay,
It was in general not very hard. So it's basically their game two was more tricky because they lead Weezing Calyrex. I lead Roy Moon Calyrex. So the idea is that whether I protect my Roy Moon, calling them protecting their Calyrex, and I did it correct. So after they protect, their Calyrex is just exposed, so I can just knock off Glacial, kill the Calyrex. After removing the Calyrex, Among Us just go crazy. They don't have Ogarpon Rock in their team. They had Iron Hands, which
right,
doesn't immune to Among Us.
right, makes a lot of sense. Last matchup to talk about. I only want to cover this one a little bit, mainly because I mean, like, with being Terra Fairy, we're actually with the Zacian, and Zacian has had some consistent results this regulation at regionals, at Worlds, and it also went 8-0 at San Antonio. And I know that we were actually practicing this particular matchup for you because I mean, you were one that only 8-0s going into day 2, right? So, what were you thinking going to this matchup as a Terra Fairy Calyrex versus, of course, a Behemoth Blade Zacian?
Yeah, so uh, Terra Fairy's main point is that you can immune to Regidraco. So although we don't take Behemoth Blade, the Ogerpon is very good into tank move from Zacian. They cannot Terra Ground Terra Blast because we can Glacial it. So I basically can only use Behemoth Blade and Play Rough that are both only half power into our Ogerpon, and we are Impish Max. So Ogerpon is very good into Zacian, and we can maybe easily go Follow Me Trick Room, and then Lando plus Calyrex is a very good in the Trick Room.
Right. Yeah, Trick Room kind of snowballs his team. Even like faster offense kind of snowballs it, but our offense is not quite as fast. But I was watching the Dalway game, and it was able to kind of overwhelm them either super fast mons or super slow mons like us. Trick Room plus Lando hits the whole team. We're gonna do a quick rundown of our tournament runs. I'll start first, just because I already have my page open. I did cover a lot of these matchups already in our kind of brief overview here, but kind of go into some slightly more in-depth details. I faced honestly almost every restricted during my run. In my Swiss rounds, I faced almost one of every restricted. Ground on round 1, Cali Ice round 2, Barida round 3, Pagos round 4, Eternatus round 5, Cali Shadow round 6, Topagos round 7, and Crown on round 8. A different restricted every time besides Tropicos. I ended up facing Burns and Brady both times in the same team. But it was actually kind of insane. Like usually you have a more diverse schedule. I didn't pull any Zama and I didn't pull any Kyogre my day 1. All these games were pretty straightforward. I feel that the games I lost, I kind of just got outplayed. Like I was able to beat Burns but lose to Brady. Brady kind of gave me more information how to beat Burns because they had the same team. Like I was doing Lando Ursh a lot versus Brady, but he realized that because our Landers are slower than Urshifu, he's able to close come into endgame, and I didn't have enough respect for instant Ursh. So versus Burns, what I did was I did Lando plus Ogerpon to basically Hornleash Sandseer. He can't like fake out both. I'm guaranteed to can hit his Ursh and deal damage. And I had Urshifu in the back with Calyrex. But is trading damage better than him. And then I read his adjustment. Usually they either do Instant plus Ursh or Instant Pagos, or they can do Fluttermane Pagos. Fluttermane Pagos is a good adjustment to catch my Lando lead because he can Icy Wind Terra Starstorm. So I did Ogerpon Ursh to force a 50-50. So like the two plays you can do there is either like Follow Me Surge and kill the Flutter. If you're reading Icy Wind, Starstorm, you can also Ivy Cudgel CC the Pagos. I did it versus Brady. He actually ended up protecting, so it doesn't always work, but you have a few plays that can do that can get around that. There's not really a whole lot to cover my run entirely. Like, I mean, the Groudon matchup was kind of weird. This one was a little bit harder because he actually had Chief Flutter and Cornerstone. So, this one I kind of did a lot like the Rory Moon plus Lando line where I could tail and Sandsear a lot of times. So, kind of gambling, but I got awarded for it. Ice Rider Mirror, I kind of explained how it works before. It's pretty straightforward with our tech pieces like Urshi, Lando went crazy. Murad, and we talked about that already. It's pretty straightforward as well. Podcast would have with that. Turn this. I lost game two because I missed a Sandsear Storm, kind of similar to Chi Flutter. I think I had to land Sandsear Storm to hit like Chi Flutter and also turn this at one point, so that was a little bit annoying. But Landorus hit this whole team. Basically, I went tail in like game one, game two, and in game three I believe I went Trick Room mode because I realized he wasn't going to cover Trick Room because I kept going fast. Shadow Rider here, a bit different. But these sets were a little bit weird because he hit Smeargle and he's also Tera Grass Giga Drain. Um, I was able to win game one because I was able to force a Tera and kill him Glacial, and I was able to spore Smeargle because he wasn't Tera Grass. Cobra Coat was actually really good here because Smeargle couldn't fake out my Amoonguss, so I was guaranteed to get a spore off. And in game two, I actually ended up dropping my restricted to going all fast and outpacing him Tailwind. And I was able to position it in an end game where Rory Moon Ogerpon versus like Kali Rillaboom. And I was able to win with Tailwind Terra Ivy Kojo on his Calyrex. Mako saying I honestly just lost because I didn't know how to play his matchup. It turns out Brute Bonnet is really good versus Kali Ice because it's faster than it with Spore. And with that defense proto booster, it actually can take multiple glacials. So really annoying matchup that I didn't know how to approach at the time. And I don't think our Corona matchup is like nearly as easy as Groudon. Like I know Shilang, losing to Luca Paz, also almost losing to it on top four. It's like you guys gotta play smart. It can be weird if you get certain turns calls wrong, and that's really it. Tristan, not much to talk about. It's the Murata matchup I mentioned earlier. I also mentioned the Ting Lu Cali Ice matchup as well. Chase, I put this on stream. It's similar to a lot of Miraidon teams. The main difference was the Ghost Hair Miraidon, and no Terra Fair Gleam. So I found that this actually a little bit easier to play around. And I had a really straightforward game plan of double redirect with Trick Room or the tail one Sandsear mode, which actually almost lost to Sandsear Miss, but I kind of choked low key. But we don't need to talk about that too much. Um, my top cut games, I faced actually a really strange Zama team. This one was a Zama rain team with double wide guard. So again, I actually dropped my restricted. I had a lot of games where I dropped my restricted to win, just because Kali Ice doesn't really work with when they have a lot of tech pieces, like either the Dozo Ting Lu matchup or the double wide guard matchup. I was able to win this game because Rory Moon Ursh with my Heart Flame plus Landorus was able to pin a lot of team, especially Lando and Rory Moon. Rory Moon and Landorus was able to hit a lot of his team, and I was able to kind of snowball from there. I went over the Dominic matchup a little bit, and same as the William Brown matchup, so I won't touch bases on that. Actually, besides the William matchup, I actually lost my game too because I misclicked Spore into his already sleeping Calyrex in Trick Room. Like he was already asleep, I clicked Spore into it because I misclicked, and I lost the game because of that. So a lot of misplays here, but I was able to win. Dalway's game, like I mentioned, you can drop the Ice Rider a lot of times versus these Kali Shadow matchups because sometimes Ice Rider is not doing enough damage, or it's not. It gets outpaced, right? It's also really bad versus Dondozo. So I realized Landorus and Tailwind was able to kind of beat most of his team. And I was able to kind of Rory Moon was also a really key piece too. Like without Rory Moon, Dio was always beating me. And versus Shieling, mirror. So not much to talk about besides I went over if you guys want to watch, I actually did a review of it. So make sure to check that out. Um, but yeah, I snowballed went through that really fast. Now we gotta go over Sheiling's run, of course, because you had a very different
Yeah.
run than me. You faced a lot more Zama, a lot more Kyogre. Let us know what happened.
Yes, so round one and round two, we talked about these are just the basic snow teams that I did the Ogre Pond, Ice Rider, Among Us Urshifu. Round three is more of a standard Miraidon, but they have Incineroar. The interesting thing is they didn't really bring Incineroar game one, so I was able to do the standard stuff. Game two, they bring Incineroar and they want to bait a double protect into a Encore pin. So they hard switch out their Incineroar to Whimsicott, but I made a read into that um, and I didn't protect my mon, so it was a good one. So game four, I went a little lucky. Their cornerstone is very annoying into my Urshifu and Ogre Pound. I caught the target of cornerstone wrong in both game one, game three. I lost game one, and game three they set up Trick Room, and I glacial crit their cornerstone under Trick Room, and I had a Mungus to spore their Calyrex. That's how I get the game three. In game two, I was able to use Roaring Moon to outpace their Pelipper, Urshifu, and Cornerstone, so that game two was a more of a clean win on my side. Um, Round five was on stream. They were speed booster flutter, but they are ended up slower than my Roaring Moon, so it's very easy for me to do Tailwind Glacial or Tailwind Surging Strike to pin the flutter. Um, Round six was a bit weird. They have 4 ground weak, so that the way I do it is to use Roaring Moon to get Tailwind up and then Sincere and do Sincere stuff. But the Iron Ball is very scary. You cannot follow me. I have to use Amoonguss to do the redirection and also use Glacial to kill it. I think two games. I don't remember the details, but one game I won out of Trick Room mode. The other one I won out of the Tailwind mode. William Brown we talked about. He always does Ogre Punk, Calyrex, Urshifu Smeargle, and it kind of goes on to some 50-50s around some turns. And Tenor Mask is also my top 8. MS with he likes to do Chimpa Urshifu. So I use Urshifu to catch the Chimpa and use my Hearth Flame to kill their Urshifu. Usually they like to Surging Strike my Ogre Palm, but I live with a good amount of health, and I can Horny to get a big amount of recovery. So this one is not as hard. You can check my top 8 stream. And day two, Luca pads, we talk about it. It's mostly mode guessing. Round 10, we also talk about it. Game 1, they lead Roaring Moon, Calyrex. I lead Roaring Moon and my Calyrex, but Ice Rider just beat their Roaring Moon very hard, so I can easily knock on Glacial so that Amoonguss Lando can beat their Dozo. Game 2 was a kind of 50-50. They lead their Wheezing Calyrex, so I need to call whether Calyrex protect turn 1, and I caught it right. Stefan didn't play me. He went for lunch, but I'm also the number 1 seed. So if I lose to him, it's fine. For I can still make cut. But I played his friend Chase Mateo in top 16. I think they are the exactly same team because they prep together. Chase just beat my friend Nick on his top 32. So I was able to scout a little bit of info, but this is mostly mind gaming on whether I use Trick Room and to be his Tailwind, or I use Tailwind to be his non-Tailwind. So game 1, what happened was I knocked his Kyogre, he Tailwind spell, but I Trick Room. And game 2, he doesn't want to give me this position, but I just go Tailwind Glacial, kill their Torn, so that they are not there. It's like I'm in Tailwind, but they don't. So I was able to win 2 games out of it. The rest of the games are on stream. I think people should be easy to check the stream on what's happening. Top 4 was a little tricky. I think I made some mistakes. In game 2, in game 2 there was a turn that they missed their Draco, which could be a deciding turn. I think if they land, I might lose my Lando. So I probably my best play is to switch in Among Us there and Glacial, so that I can do more spores.
Yes, yes. I when I saw that, I was really scared because I really want us to be in finals together. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way he's gonna lose because the Draco's gonna hit and he missed. So I'm really glad he missed Draco. I think that it also kind of shows that top cut can be hard sometimes. They give us no breaks basically. It's a long day of
Mm.
Pokemon. I was also making mistakes. I mean, like finals, I made misplays as well. I went over that during my last video. Just you know, in a long day of field competition, it's like sometimes you won't be making always best plays, but um, anything can happen in Pokemon, right? So yeah, that's the run. Actually, one thing I'm gonna talk about is like, how do you think the mirror is supposed to play entirely? Because I feel like now that the team is public, I've been hearing everyone's playing the mirror. So like, do you think the game plans we keep out on the stream were the more optimal plays, or do you think there are other options for us to play the mirror better?
Yeah, I think the tricky part is for us is different because we prep together. We know everything is the same, but for other
Right,
people can do speed creep. So you never know.
right.
Okay, is my Urshifu faster? If is my Lando faster? Is my Ogerpon faster? You never know.
Hmm.
So the slower one tries to go for the Trick Room mode. They can position their Calyrex and Mungus. The faster one want to go the Tailwind mode. Say they can lead Rumu and Urshifu. So I think that they're and both teams are. If it's a mirror, it's Tail Room. So it's always you want your Trick Room in front of your opponent's Tailwind. Or if your opponent doesn't do Tailwind, you go your Tailwind. So tail room are a lot of more guessing. I think if you like to play Arubica Miraidon, you kind of know how it goes.
Yeah,
But I think scouting on the speed information is also very important in the mirror because no one, everyone is going to EV their mons and have different speed tiers.
makes a lot of sense. Yep. And yeah, that's it with our runs. Quick rundown of that, and hopefully that was useful. Last part of the video today is questions. I asked you guys if there's any questions you guys want to ask about the team on Twitter and YouTube. And these first three were from one person, actually. I think it was Eric Bush. And what weaknesses did you identify, and how did you adapt the team and lines to cover for them? So I think we briefly went over this a bit, right? We talked about how the team was really with the Shadow Rider before, and we found that Rory Moon was that answer, along with some other options like Cobra Cloak Mungus and Rapid Strike Urshifu with that Terra Water. I think were the main ways to adapt to it. Um, and then also like things like the Terra Fairy, like we found all these changes through testing, like trial and error. And I think that the changes we made covered for almost all weaknesses, and that's why we had a a near perfect run. We basically covered every matchup as we could. Uh, you want anything to add to that, or you agree?
I think in terms of weakness, we also talk about like safety goggles or Shifuzama might still be a weakness for the
Right.
current build of the team, which if we don't change any set, it's probably very hard to fix.
Hmm.
Maybe some grass move on Among Us, say if we run Leaf Storm or Grass Knot, it will be much
Right.
easier because we can directly damage the safety goggles Urshifu. But I think if we drop Protect or drop Pollen Pop, some other matchup is going to get harder. So this is something we need to think if it's worth a trade-off.
100% agree. Also, actually, another weakness I remember, Miraidon Dozo. We could not beat that top 8 worlds team, the Mitsu Dozo team. That team is so oppressive because you can't sport a Dozo because of the Miraidon, and Miraidon Elite forces like a lot of awkward Terras. And I think we found that we didn't have any winning replays of that actually when we were testing, right? So those two were probably our hardest matchups by far, Miraidon Dozo and Safety Goggles Urshifu Zamazenta. Uh, what is one thing you did to prepare for tournaments that made a big impact with relatively little time investment? Um, I think what we usually do, what did you prepare that made a big impact um, with little time investment? I don't know about little time investment. I feel like we for every tournament, we always just throw a lot of time into it, and that's how we prepare, right? Like calling every
Mm.
day for multiple hours. I don't think like anything we do is little time investment. Like everything we put is literally time investment. Not a single tournament we do, we don't hard prep for. For worlds, everyone should see our world stock. Actually, our world stock, we had like thousands of replays collected from everyone in our squad. We had a team builder group before. For this one, we worked with me, you, Nicholas Donnelly, William, Chunjun, our senior. We had so many different replays and minds into this, and I feel like you can't have little time investment for a tournament. Like if you don't have as much time, I feel like it's okay sometimes, but I feel like if you want to do really well, you need to throw in a bunch of hours because practice is so important, in my opinion.
Yeah, for this team, it comes from my Dream Battle Spot team, and we started reinvested it since December. So it's basically like 1.5 months or 2 months of preparation of this whole team.
Yep, a lot of prep was put into this. What makes the team better than any other Cali Ice team right now? I guess I'll have you answer this because I feel like we've been using Cali's for a while, but like, why did we choose this over any other generic Cali Ice team, balance team?
I think it's mostly the matchup spread. So, for example, if we compare it to our Worlds team is much more positive into CSR balance, but much more negative into Zamazenta. But this team is the opposite. Its CSR balance matchup is not as clean, but Zamazenta has much better lines. So I think this team is more of a meta call in the current Zamazenta heavy CSR low meta.
Right.
So I cannot say this team is better in terms of build or attacks, but I think this team is better at the time of Santonio as a meta call.
Perfect. I think that directly answers the next question. How strong do you think the team will be going forward? I think that Sheeling said it perfectly. It was strong for this tournament because of the current metagame. It's hard to say how EOIC is going to be in other tournaments because how RegG has been is kind of in a resolving circle, right? There's a new team every week that kind of does well. It's kind of based on what is trending, right? CSR going to the latest Birmingham and San Antonio tournaments was pretty low. So Cali Ice had a huge rise. Like even though we have Cali Shadow Tex, Cali Shadow is always still technically favorable versus Ice Rider, stuff like that, right? So It kind of depends on the Shadow Rider usage and other things like that. Maybe even like Kyogre might rise up too. Kyogre can also be an issue for the team sometimes, could be a bit annoying. But I think the team is still strong. It's going to be one of the stronger Ice Rider teams just because you have so many flexible modes. But I don't know if it's going to be the strongest at UIC just because of how wide the meta can be by then. Do you think knowing the spreads will make it easier playing against it now? I think it depends. I mean, Luca being Shilang knowing the team, Impish Okapan might cause some issues. I feel like other people knowing that as well. But what do you think, Shilang, since you played him?
Yeah, so I think it's one thing is information needs to be like transparent. Like if I know Luca knows, I will probably play a little better. And also, I think we run a lot of practice games versus me versus Justin in our practice, and all turns that we are play in a way that both of us know all the spreads and try to play optimally. So I think even though the EVs are open, there are you can still play well or play better to beat the opponent because the team is certainly well built.
Yeah, exactly. Like in practice, Shilang was beating me a lot with these adjustments, assuming they know it. But we learn how to beat them back with enough practice. So yeah. Which Okapan version's Q was it Wellspring? It's actually Heart Flame because we just went with Heart Flame. So gonna go past that. How did the team come back in December? We kind of talked about that already. And the main question here is also what specifically drew you all to Ice Rider over Kyogre? That's actually a good question because me and Shiling main Kyogre from Indianapolis to NIC. And actually, he did suggest going back to Wochen for a bit, but I told him I was having so much issues in Ride on Heartflame, could not beat it. And I think that's where we found Ice Rider was more consistent. But I know you always love Wochen Kyogre at heart, right?
The biggest change in the meta is that back in the Kyogre time, all the Miraidons are Terra Electric discharge. So that my old Kyogre team has stacked Dark types, which is fine with discharge, but not really fine with Dazzling Gleam. The whole team has zero fair resistance, so that they can just support plus Dazzling Gleam, deal big damage to my whole team, which is not fun. So maybe I will try to find some new Kyogre builds that can solve the problem. But as of now, Ice Rider is much more consistent, and we love Ice Rider.
100% agree. Possible changes in how we moving forward would be nice. We kind of talked about potential changes like maybe going Grass Knot Grass Knot on the Among Us if you want to cover for Goggles Urshifu. Other changes, I mean, you guys have the team in EVs now. Go for speed creep. Who cares? Be the faster Ice Rider. Be the faster Lando if you really want. But I personally think the six are pretty good the way it is. I feel like you need to make some pretty big changes to make it like I think like covering different matchups, right? But the current six I think covers like the most mid ground as we can go. I feel. But what do you think? What changes?
Yeah, it definitely depends on how the meta goes and especially how balanced CSR goes. If balanced CSR come back, I would suggest our worst team than this team, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. MVP of the tournament. Oh, that's hard. I think it's between either Rory Moon or Landorus. They were so good for me. Maybe it's actually the Lando. I think I brought Lando almost every single game. Earth Power Sanseer. I think actually I landed a lot of Sanseers. I'm not gonna lie. I think to do good in this tournament, we have to click Sanseer a lot. 80% of the time it can land, and when it lands, it does so much damage. So I think for me it was Landorus. What about you? Your best Pokemon?
Yeah, Sensier feels like Precipice Blade. You lose 5% of accuracy, but still hit hard or hit even harder than Precipice Blade, and you don't need to take the restricted slot. For MVP, I don't know. I feel all 6 months are doing well in during this weekend. So, but I think Among Us has been doing a better job. We put Among Us on the team in the very last, but Among Us carried me through multiple rounds of day one. I faced multiple Zamazentas and Miraidon where Among Us was able to carry me. And day two, I also played the Nozo, which Among Us is also very important there.
Yes, yes. What does your team building process usually look like? I think this whole video kind of showed it. And how did you come to the conclusion of a team like this would do so well? Well, I mean, I booked my fight last minute because this team I knew would do well. I mean, it won Birmingham Seniors. I was doing really well with it on ladder. Testing was going amazing. So yeah, it's really just a bunch of testing and looking at the meta. Like she like mentioned, we realized CSR usage was low. We knew that Zamazen and Mirana usage was high. Teching Lando, teching Amoonguss, all the doing well versus the common Pokemon in the current metagame. So that's kind of how we did it. And for predicting a very undervalued Mon, Rory Moon It's kind of undervalued on Cali Ice, but it's been a thing on a while. It's been on CSR teams, it's been on Kyogre teams. It's for similar reasons to beat Shadow Rider, right? So we had tech piece for Shadow Rider. It also gave us the Tera Room option of the fast and slow. So that's kind of how the team building process is. We kind of went over this whole video. And this is kind of more a me question. The choice of when to leave behind your restricted. I did this a lot. Yeah, the semi match. I went over my run a bit, right? I left behind the Ice Rider versus Dalway, and I think you can do this in a lot of matchups on this team because you're so flexible, right? The Tarum option is nice, but if you're going to go all on a Tailwind, Ice Rider is sometimes a really awkward pick. I remember talking to Cheeling a lot in the Shadow Rider matchup is I hate bringing Rory Moon and Cali Ice in the same matchup versus Shadow Rider because if they catch me when my speaking control is like really awkward, or if I catch Rory Moon in Trick Room, stuff like that, it's so awkward versus the Shadow Rider, right? Having something that can outspeed the Shadow Rider more in tail consistently, like always having Lando or Ursh to outspeed it, felt like really strong. So that's what I usually did. And I usually dropped my restricted mostly to Shadow Rider matchup and even the Zamazenta matchup sometimes if they had, let's say, the double white guard. So most common sets I did it was top 32 set and top 4 set is when I dropped my restricted the most. And I don't know if you did it during your run at all. Did you ever have time where you dropped your restricted or you always brought it during your run?
Uh, for my run, I think I always brought it
Okay.
because I hit so many Miraidon, and Ice Rider Mirror restrict is also quite nice.
Right, right. And any matchups you struggle versus with the ones that are good. I mean, we talked about the main struggles already. Goggles, Ursh, Dozo, Miraidon. Certain CSR builds are really annoying, and I think that's really it. The ones were good. I mean, I mentioned before, like I really want to hit Groudon. Groudon, the Groudon jump off one, really good matchup. I want to say Miraidon with Dark Ursh, another good matchup. And I want to say certain Ice Rider mirrors that weren't Rock Pond, like the Mungus Ice Rider mirrors, I felt like were. I feel like I had a good grasp of them. Like I faced so much Ice Rider in my run. I faced like 5 or 6 and I was able to beat all of them because I just had so much Ice Rider practice, so I felt really confident in that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think into Ice Rider, the ones with Among Us are easier. The ones with Cornerstone are the harder ones, and
mm,
also Calyrex, Calyrex are the harder ones.
yes, yes, and yeah, I think that's it. That's it for all the questions, and that's it for the team report. This is the first team report on the channel. Sorry for lying in the past of team reports on Twitter when I said I would make one, but I have Sheeling here to help me. And I think this came out really great and hopefully answer everyone's questions, give you a brief overview of the team, kind of show us how we make teams in general. And this is one of the best ones we've ever made. We've had a lot of good team success before, like the NIC Wochen one, the Toronto Iron Bundle Salamence one. We had so many cool teams we worked on together, but this is our truly the best one, the best result we've ever had in with any team, and this has a special place in our heart. So yeah, this is the run to code as well here. Sheeling posted this a few days ago, but you guys can see here on YouTube, and the Poke Paste is also over here. I have both linked it both in the description. And yeah, that's gonna be it. This is your San Antonio Regional Champion team and finalist team and top 32 team and Birmingham Seniors Regional team. So many placements, and yeah, I can't believe we did it. We finally won our fourth regional. um, but yeah, that's gonna be for today. Any last words, Shilang, before we head off?
No, I hope people can enjoy the team, and thanks for Justin for posting all the reports on the YouTube.
Yeah, perfect. Then yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Shilang, and thank you so much, guys, for watching. And I'll have more videos coming out soon. That's gonna be it for today, and I'll catch you all later. Goodbye.